So we're delighted to be joined by Christophe GAVIGLIO. He is the experimental engineer in charge of the mechanization of the vineyard for the French Vine and Wine Institute. It's our pleasure to have you here. I enjoy reading all of the support and advocacy that you give this segment in mainstream media like Wine Spectator. You're a strong advocate for this discipline. Please welcome Christophe.
Thank you very much for this introduction. I work with the Institute for Wine, and I think we had a very interesting roundtable discussion. We talked about the accuracy or precision viticulture, and this is why I want to present this morning the development of new functions for the robot, and more particularly thinking about the case of usage with using sensors. So the idea is not to propose a turnkey solution right away, but to think upstream about what can be done. Because what we have found is that we have robots focusing on hoeing. This has been developed by the roundtable discussants, but then the next phase will be spraying. So there we have robots that are very often used on the plots, and we have a number of operators in the plots. As we said previously, there will be more robots intervention and less labor force, and so there we are losing a bit of information that was captured when looking at the vineyard. When you were running the tractor or on the side of the tractor. So what can you capture by using various sensors as pertinent information with added value? So the structure of the robot, be they wherever, whatever the manufacturer, it means it's a structure which is fairly pertinent to install various types of sensors to look at the vegetation or the ground and to have a feedback that can be pertinent for the user of the robot who is not operating with the robot alongside the robot all day long. So I'll talk about two particular cases that we've done with the Mayo partnership with Carbon B. This is the name. So we needed a robot support, and we needed to have some sensors. So we have Carbon B, which is a manufacturer specialized in accurate sensors, and for their data processing in particular, they use i.e. artificial intelligence and neural networks. And so the cases that I will present will be the detection and mildew and adventist. So whenever we look at the glyphosate solutions with the weed killers, so the management of the plot is very difficult because we are using a tractor or we are using a robot. But if we have a mechanical use, we may have a problem because the so-called vivace, so with the vegetation anyway. So we have to cut the grass and disperse it with the tools, and there may be some roots that will develop somewhere else. So what we want to do is mechanical weeding. So we have to consider this, and it's a mildew. This is the second case that we'll consider, and there we are looking at focusing as much as we can, so that we can look at the mildew spots, not necessarily for an immediate reaction on our part, but to apply less products, particularly at the time where it has to be done, or for a strategic action where we think about the long-term operation, and we will insist and we'll look at limiting the application or spraying the products when we see that from one year to the next, the mildew areas are changing. So the objective and this particular prospective study was to see the adequacy of this type of sensor with the robot. We have an adequacy in terms of robot architecture, but then the question we may ask, when the robot is moving, due to its space, its speed and the vibrations, do we still have something which is compatible with the acquisition of the image, with a quality image actually? So, and then afterwards, we have to qualify the usage case, because it's very good to spot the plants and to look at the mildew spots, but we have to see how we can possibly treat this, process this information, and what type of interactions we want, because this is where you get the added value. Now, this value, due to an equipment on the robot, is associated with working better to avoid problems like weeding problems or labor problems. So we want to work better. So I'd like to show you what we have done, because the idea is to see what we want to do with the robots. And so we look at some weeds, and we have been focusing on one particular weed, and we look at the position of the robot. We try to find the best possible image relative to the coverage and the targets. We do some acquisition, we do some annotation on the image, and then afterwards we have artificial intelligence to apply to a particular zone to see what sort of mapping we can be producing on this particular topics. So in practice, we have annotations. It's cumbersome, but it's necessary, because we have a problem, and then we get images on which we are trying to identify the plants in particular, and are these plants corresponding to what we are looking for? If that is the case, then we'll have an annotation, we'll do some coloring, as simple as that, to get some raw or adapted images. So this is what we've done here on the so-called potentile, because it's a perennial weed, and so it could have been any other weed actually, which we think is detrimental to the vine. It could have been quack grass as well. So we have been focusing. We have put some milestones and so you can see the red spots. This is the detection given by the system on the acquisition. This is an acquisition in which we have found the right position for the sensor, and we are launching the robot autonomously with the sensors operating, and we get the data afterwards, and we see what we get. And then globally we get something which is working fairly well, and then we have a certain elapsed time between the so we have some false positive. This is a detection problem. It's not all perfect, but we did this test on a restricted number of images, about 100 images. So you can see the potential. If you want to have an efficient system, then you could use more images than 100. Actually. So once you have this particular image, what can you do? There, all the choices are still in the hands of the wine grower. It's not artificial intelligence or the robot which are determining what to do. We get an information which has gotten some value for the farmer, because there you've got the extension of the problematic of the perennial weed. Maybe I should work on my soil differently to get to avoid the propagation of this particular weed. So the technology is not saying what we have to do, but then it shows the issue. And this weed can potentially extend. We can use the technology every year to see whether the problem has been expanding or not. But then the grower knows, and he says that he knows what he has to do, and he will take measures by using other tools, other methods in order to avoid it to be more difficult to run, to manage. Now, for the mildew expansion as well, we'll look at the soil, at the vegetation, and we'll look at the vegetation. And there we have some leaves on which we'll try to see the spots. And then you also have the sky. This is a covered sky, and cloudy, and there's not much contrast. In this type of acquisition, the light is going to play on the quality of the image. And this is something which you can imagine before doing the instrumentation, but this is something that we were faced with because we wanted to have a set of images that would be easy to exploit. And the issue was not the matching of the spots of mildew and the vegetation. We can do that easily, more easily than with weeds that are complex among other grass that are more difficult to identify, but then the mildew, it's easier to identify. Once you have a set of data which is acceptable, we can easily use the carbon B technology, and we can find the zones in which we identified there was mildew, and as provided by the technology. So again, on this particular basis, the wine grower is informed. So without being on the spot, that enables him to find the priorities or to change the way he proceeds. He will identify maybe a problem. And you can imagine that within a plot like that, if you had this type of detection only, that is 2 rows that are very much suffering with the impact of mildew, that would be significant. It would show that there's a problem with the treatment problems. It will inform the wine grower to tell him that he has something to do, and he has to change his practices maybe. So, in conclusion of all that, well, the automatization is compatible with the use the vibration of the robot and the speed of the robot. It's not a problem. It's quite pertinent if you haven't got many human interventions. It's a good complement to human observation, and it will be good to apply it to other problematics. You could think about diseases or to provide an agronomic information to the vineyard, to the wine grower, and information is very important. And we should be able to modulate the tools and the use of the tools. I think one of the discussants talked about it. We can also use maps, and if we haven't got the tools to modulate, the modulate will always, or the fine tuning will be done by humans. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for those who enabled me to present this particular technical study this morning. Thank you.